What drew you to music in the first place? Now, in doing research, you've mentioned Front Club in
Yeah,
Hamburg in the late 80s a lot.
yeah.
And so I guess why was that clubbing experience so special? And I'm also curious if there are any clubs or any live music experiences you've had recently before the pandemic, obviously, that compare to that energy in any kind of way.
Um, well, I was into music like pretty much all my life as a young kid. I used to make mixtape like everyone else my age, I think, and yeah, I didn't play an instrument, and I didn't really collect records or anything. I just was making my mixtapes, and but I was like I was going out to dance a lot with my friends, but more to like funk music, everything that was popular at the time. Bit of Prince, Michael Jackson, coming talking about pop music and stuff they were playing discotheques, I would say. Everything different from the club scene. And then my friend said I should come with her to the Front Club in Hamburg, and they play this house sound. And I didn't know anything. I haven't heard anything about it. And that was around 87, 88. I don't remember exactly which year it was. And I was like, house sound, what's this house sound? And there's no Google, so there's nowhere else place you can search for it. So I went to a record shop and I basically found two records, the house sound of Chicago and one other compilation that I don't remember right now, to know what was going on. And yeah, I went home, listened to those records, and I kind of really enjoyed what I was listening to, but I didn't know what to expect from the club. I just knew that the music is before DJs in the discotheques, they weren't really mixing records together. It was just one track, one by one, and no fading, and no like cuts or anything. It just really music stopped and then they played the next track, more or less. And yeah, so we finally drove to Hamburg from Bremen. I was living in Hamburg, in Bremen at the time. It's like an hour drive, and we got into the club. Luckily, it was kind of a hard door because it was like a gay club, and of course they wouldn't let everybody in because they wanted to protect the crowd. That's what they say also about Berghain these days, and like be like so that no one gets in who's like not open-minded enough to cope with what's going on inside.
Mhm.
And yeah, so luckily we get in. The club, the atmosphere was great just from the door. I think I remember that like the music was pumping, and there's a small entrance, and then you get into the dance floor, which is basically almost like a square. I remember it's really funny because I still remember this floor so well. It was kind of a square room, and they had like two podiums at the side, and in the middle was a dance floor, and the DJ was behind the darkened glass, so you couldn't see him. And there was no bar inside the room; it was just a dance floor. And yeah, at one point, probably we had a drink or two before we went to the dance floor, but then I've been dancing my ass off all night, and I was enjoying the music non-stop. That was like really blowing my mind, and also the energy that the people had in the club. And I think it's also because for the for for the gay community to have their own space at that time, to be who they were, and like uh, not being, how you say, judged for being gay or something like this.
Mhm.
And yeah, just living their life the way they wanted to, and expressing themselves, and a lot of creative outfits as well. And the energy was just amazing, and the music was great. So I after that night, I was like, wow, this is something. the first time I remember music anything like it that I thought was something special was when the was this wild style movie, and the breakdance stuff. But I
Mhm.
was a bit too young to really get into it. We did some breakdancing on the street with my friends and stuff, but more like on a kids page. I think we were 13 or something, and it wasn't like a really big thing in Germany, so we didn't really get into it too much. But that moment at the club that really got me into house music, and I started buying more records after that. I bought the second turntable and a small mixer. The first turntable didn't have a pitch, and the second one only had a pitch wheel, so not like a pitch fader. And yeah, so I had to pitch one record with my fingers, and yeah. So and then I started making tapes for friends and tried to mixing, which was kind of difficult with the two turntables that I had at the time. And
Mhm.
to answer your second question about the clubs, I've been thinking about this a lot. And I mean, there's great clubs, to be honest, out there right now. And probably the sound is so much better than it was back then. And even I remember like being the first times in Berlin, but you don't remember about the sound system after all the years. You just remember about the moments, and
Yeah.
and yeah. So I don't know. It's really hard to say. There, as I say, they are great clubs, but the energy that it had at the early days, maybe also at this place because it was more like a gay club, and they, what I was saying before, they would be able to express their freedom, their everything, and it was something else. But also because the music was new and not so many people were in it, and now like probably a lot of the kids, their grandparents, been listening to house music already, so it's like a
Mhm.
completely different thing. And even in the years after, when I started going out to house and techno in Berlin and in other clubs in Hamburg, the scene, and even in Ibiza in the early years that I went in the early 90s, it seemed a lot of creative people and only people who really wanted to be there. And it was not for everyone. I remember playing these tapes to my friends, and they were saying this is not even music. And even though a lot of the house tracks, the classic, they have vocals and everything, like listen to it now, people would say, oh, this is rather commercial, but back then it was already like music that people were like, wow, this is kind of, no, I don't like this.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I think, having being a part of a small scene is always something that's different than at least I can speak for Germany and for Europe and these places. I think when going to the S, there's still a different feeling. It still seems, even though it's coming from there, it still seems it's not like a big part of the culture like it is here in Europe. It's becoming more and more like it, but still the scene seems to be smaller, and there seems to be exchanges between cities, between people. And I met people who've been traveling to follow me on my gigs, and something like this would probably not happening in Europe anymore, unless you're like a superstar DJ or something like this. And yeah, it's some things change for the better. The sound, for example, the professionality of everything. But sometimes the vibe is missing, especially now with the phones. People always, on the phone, taking pictures, recording, looking at Shazam to find the tracks it's playing. And back then, people were basically just really partying and going off the nuts, to let go of the week, and don't let anything from the outside come in. And it's more like, yeah, living the moment. And now it's more like really a lot of distractions from the outside world, which I don't think is always helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, specifically talking about the Shazam thing, what I always say is if it's really like a good set, then the Shazam won't be able to pick up anything because it'll either be a track that's not out, or like they'll have messed with and mixed it in such a way where it's not, even if it's even if someone might be able to recognize parts of it, it's
Yeah,
not something that that a computer could pick out because there's that human element to it, you know.
yeah, no, definitely.
Um, cool. Another question is, how has your production process changed from, those early days of, partying in Hamburg, twisting the pitch and stuff. Obviously, let's talk about DJing. But so yeah, just over the last 20 years or however long that you've been doing it, how has your production process changed? And also what stayed the same about it?
Um, well, I started um, working with other people because I didn't have my own gear, and back then it was basically impossible to work just with a computer. I think there were some people working music with just a computer, but yeah, mostly you needed at least a keyboard, a mixer, and maybe a drum machine or a sampler, and stuff like that. And so yeah, I after I started mixing and going out to clubs and then playing even more, and finally started to DJ in clubs, I really wanted to know how this music was produced. And I asked around some friends who I knew had a studio already, if I could, come by and see how they work on the music, and maybe, like do something together. And so this is how I got introduced into writing music, by looking over the shoulder of other people and touching the first time some knobs on the gear. And but again, after a short time, I realized that I wanted to be able to work on my own sound in my own room, and I didn't want anyone else um, to yeah, how to say it. It's not about the influences of somebody else. I love working together with other people, but I think also it was a part of, a learning process for me. It was kind of, I felt the need of knowing how to produce this kind of music by myself. I really wanted
Mm-hmm.
to learn it, and I wanted to write my own music. And just, I in the beginning, I don't think I even thought of releasing the stuff that I was writing. I was lucky enough that the music I wrote with these other people I visited in the studio, they were already released. And yeah, so I basically took a loan from the bank, and I bought some equipment. I bought a JD 800 from Roland, and a Mackie 1604, I think. And I think that's how I started writing tracks, because the JD 800 already had like a 909 and an 808 drum set inside, not really sounding great, but it was something you could work with. And I think even my first tracks only have been written with the JD 800. So I was very limited to what I was able to do, um, and yeah, that's how it all started. And then from there, I also was mixing, which I can't recommend to anyone, was mixing my music on hi-fi speakers
Mm.
that I had from my Zanyo hi-fi tower from like 20 years ago or something like this. Or no, that's too long. Back in the days, probably 5 years. But yeah, so it was very difficult to really be analytic about the sound, even though I didn't have the knowledge to be able to listen, to really listen analytically, but without having like a proper monitor, it was definitely even harder. So yeah, and then from there, over the years, I think a lot of things changed. I bought many. I had a process of where I didn't have much money, but I still wanted to buy more equipment, and I was buying a lot of virtual analog stuff because I didn't want to buy old analog stuff that needs a lot of patience, and like also maybe some repair services in between. And then I figured that I was only reproducing sounds of the analog gear. So and that's what and they were making it not as good as the analog gear. So I started buying analog gear a few years later, and then started kind of collecting. I think how it is for everyone who starts buying analog gear. You kind of buy more than you basically need. And then I moved to Berlin, and that's where I had my first bigger home studio with a lot of gear and a bigger mixer, my first Allen Heath mixer at the time, and proper studio monitors, and yeah, a proper studio setup. And then I was living there for quite some times before I moved to my first proper studio outside my house. And it was the first room, like a proper studio build, even a bigger desk and everything. And but I was working there for 15 years, and I've been basically working analog. Apart from, always loved working on drums on a sampler, or later on the computer. I don't know why. Drum machines I do use, but very rare, more for jamming. And then a lot of times I recorded, and then even I start working, processing everything in the computer, and while I had the analog gear still running while recording, and then sometimes doing like a live modulation while recording the final track instead of recording the file of the. That's also this stuff that's changed over the years. And I think basically over the past few years, I've been working more and more in the box, because plugins got so much better, and it's very convenient also. And yeah, you don't need all the expensive gear, outboard gear, to be able to mix. But also, I was mixing down my tracks for almost 8 years with Hannes Bieger, because I got to the point where I thought, the process of mixing music was keeping me from writing music, because I was already starting mixing music while I was writing, still like the basic idea of the track. And then I got lost into mixing, and I think using a mixing engineer helped me to get rid of the idea of everything has to sound great before I start arranging the track. So now I've learned from this, and I'm back to just record everything to be able to get like a proper arrangement. And then when the arrangement is then done, I start mixing, and not before. Sometimes, of course, effect settings and stuff, it's important for the track itself. But yeah, this is something I also learned over the years, which is, I think, yeah, probably the most important thing I've learned, to let loose of the idea of mixing already when laying down ideas.
Yeah, I mean, keep the parts of the process separate, rather than meld them all into one thing. I mean, obviously everybody's flow is different, of course, but I mean, what you said makes a lot of sense, where it's like, why would you start mixing stuff when the track isn't even done? When, like, you could add something, you might even take something out, and just let it exist as it is, and then get the mixing done once you're happy with that part.
Exactly. Once you add another synthesizer, you already have to do new mix down. So why even bothering? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting, what you said, is that there was a time when you weren't even planning to release what you were making at all. And so I'm wondering, is that why you gravitated pretty early on towards running labels and running your own label, is so you always have that sort of freedom when it came to releasing music? There would always be a place for it.
No, I think I started really thinking of running my own label. My first tracks, the collaborations, have been released on Superstition recordings, which being more like a progressive techno trance kind of label.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started writing my first own tracks, they didn't really have this approach anymore. They were way more minimal. They didn't really fit the surrounding, and so they started something called Superstition Special, which was more like a side label or sub label, you would call it today. But still, it was part of the whole thing, and I didn't really see myself in this world, and I was talking to Tobias, who's nowadays my label partner, who was the guy who was running Superstition Recordings. Talking about my feelings about the label and my sound, and that I think I have to surround myself with music that is like, you know, that's more helpful for my music and for my career if I release this music with in a surrounding where it fits, you know, instead of having it and people would be like, this, why is this music on this label? So basically I think he suggested even to start a label for this kind of sound instead of me searching for another label. And oops, this video. Okay. And so yeah, that's how we started thinking of founding a label for my sound, and me thinking of, you know, like other people that I knew that were writing similar music to be able to sign them for this label. And then we started Raw Elements in '96 to be able to release music that I thought would be worth releasing at the time.
Cool. And you said that was 1996?
Yeah.
So that's almost 26 years in total when you've been running labels of various styles. And so that's almost that's a huge part of your whole career. And so I'm wondering, you know, and it's not just a part, it's something that you've very much put at the forefront. And so I'm wondering, where do you find the joy in running a label as compared to making music and DJing? You know, because just from an outside perspective, you ask any stranger on the street, like, why do you think someone would want to be a DJ? It's like, you know, can be pretty clear. The traveling, the crowd, it's an exciting job. And then the music, you know, every creative outlet, you know, whether you want whatever kind of artist you want to be, it's pretty obvious to an outsider why that would be so appealing. Running a label, not as much. And so I think it'd be cool. I mean, I'm just curious from your perspective as someone with so much experience, where you find the joy in running labels.
Well, I think I have to start at why I became a DJ is as I mentioned before, it's like I got to this club and I loved this music so much, and I loved the energy of, you know, records being mixed together. And for 3 years, I was mixing tapes at home before I even was thinking of becoming a DJ inside a club. Also, at the time, the DJ was someone standing in the corner playing music to people. It was not the main focus of the club, because the main focus was to release your stress from the week and have a good time with your friends on the dance floor instead of facing the DJ. People weren't facing the DJ at the time. Maybe they were already at the Omen with Sven Fate because he was such a, or he still is. His personality is very outstanding, and I think people were already, you know, facing him. But in most clubs in the world, the DJ was more like someone people wouldn't pay too much attention to. They were paying attention to the music, so what they were listening, but not like how the DJ was looking or if he had the arms in the air or anything like it. So when I started DJing in the clubs, it was because I was in Ibiza with a friend of mine who we both used to bartend at the club in Bremen, and we went to Ibiza, and again we felt like so impressed by what was going on there. There was a lot of parties created by various people with theme. It was theme parties. It sounds quite funny today, but back then some of the theme parties were quite cool, and people were dressing up for it, and again, we're speaking about the the early 90s. And we were like, wow, this is something that is missing in our hometown, and maybe we should try do something like this in our hometown. And so we got back, talked to the owner of the club, and he was like, well, you can have every first Friday in the month and do your parties. And then we were like, okay, but then we have to book a DJ. And my friend was saying like, hey, why don't you do DJ? And I was like, yeah, but we have to do the decoration and everything. And so we asked the one of the DJs, Jens Malstedt, who was playing on Saturday nights, if he wants to join us for our parties once a month. And I was the other DJ, obviously. And so I got into DJing by almost out of how you say, I can't find the English word, because we had to save some money, and I know that I could play some records. But so yeah, I was doing it. So I was never thinking when I started playing clubs, I wasn't thinking of, wow, the DJ is a great guy, or he's able to travel. Also, DJs weren't traveling that much. DJ was basically a local DJ. You would play in the same club every fucking Friday night or Thursday or Saturday night, or basically once a month. So I was doing it basically. Then I got into it, and even though I loved doing it at home before, I kind of started to feel what was it about being in the club and being a DJ for the crowd, and I just basically enjoyed what I was doing. And this is the same when I started writing music. I didn't want to start writing music because I wanted to push my career, or I knew that I had to do this to become that or something like this, or have a better profile as a DJ. I really wanted to know how it was happening, and I was enjoying it, and that's how I kept doing it. And same with running a label. When I basically started running a label, I loved listening to demos. I love giving other people the chance to release their music, and also being able to surround yourself with music that you personally like. I still, after all the years, I think this is my main driving motive, or like it's like the passion for the music itself. And it's, to me, it's all a big thing. Like I'm either in it like 100% or I'm not. Like it's like I don't think I could just be a DJ or just be a producer or just a label guy. To me, it's like the whole, it has to be the whole thing. I want to do everything. It's like, because I love it so much. And yeah, this is what brings me joy. And I'm not doing it, I'm happy that I'm basically making a living out of it, but it's not like what's driving me. I think even if I would have to work on a job like 9 to 5, and then I would still like try to play music in clubs, and I would probably still be in the studio and write music, and I probably would still run a label. And because the money was never, or like fame was never why I was doing it, why I was doing what I'm doing.
So it's like being a label owner and being a producer and being a DJ, it's almost not even separate things. It's just
not
one.
For me. No.
Yeah, just
to
one
me,
thing.
It's all like, yeah.
Cool. It's very inspiring and admirable perspective, and it lets anybody who is familiar with you or Poker Flat basically guarantees that there isn't one aspect that gets more or less attention. It's all getting your 100% effort, and that's just awesome from being on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, well, sometimes I have to be honest. Sometimes it's difficult because it's a lot of work. I'm happy I have partners at the label, and I have agents who take care of all the booking sites, because it's a lot of work. And I have to say that sometimes I'm not 100% on this or on that. I have to sometimes take a few percentages to be able to do everything, but still, like, yeah, I'm trying my best, and I think I'm I'm at 80% for the label most of the time. I'm at 100, but sometimes I'm at 80, and I know that. But I try to talk to my artists. If I'm not replying to the demos in like a very short time, please remind me. I'm gonna be listening to it, and yeah. So
Well, more than anything, the honesty is certainly appreciated.
yeah.
Well, a quick question I'm curious about is how many labels you're actually working on currently today? Because in doing research, there's, Poker Flat. That's clear. You're still working on that. Raw Elements was an older one that might have gone by the wayside, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I've also seen Audiomatic or Audiomatique,
Yeah.
Sublease, Traffic Signs, Dessous. So I guess you've clearly worked on so many different ones throughout your career. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, which ones are you still working on today?
Yeah, Raw Elements was the first. We split that in two, in Dessous and Poker Flat recordings. And after I think 10 years of these two, we added Audiomatique because we kept on getting a lot of demos that weren't quite fitting on one of these two, and we couldn't let go. If I hear like a great track, I'm like, we could do it. Why give it to some? So it's basically it started like this, and then we've been running these for quite some time, and then but it was also taking a lot of time to work on these, and so we finally decided to concentrate on Poker Flat. Traffic Signs and B Series, they were more like series. That's where they called that they were basically just for my music, for like 3 maybe 6 releases. Traffic Signs had like a little revival a few years ago with one track that I did that had the kind of same working process. So I decided to release it on the label. But yeah, basically we're doing Poker Flat right now and Sublease Music. These are the two we're focusing on. The others, I prefer to say they're asleep instead of saying like we definitely put them away and that's not gonna ever happen again. But yeah, they right now they are asleep, and we're focusing on Poker Flat and Sublease Music right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think asleep is an accurate way to describe them, because whatever, say the trends in music go a certain way that leans back towards those sounds that you curated, you have that pre-existing sort of framework that
Yeah.
it's like you're not going to change the entirety of Poker Flat to adapt to trends. That's just
Yeah.
not. I mean, I'm mad. I don't think you're going to do that.
No.
And so if something comes along and there's however many great artists who want to release the the Audiomatic style or the Traffic Sign style, why try to change something that's already has a reputation? Why not just revive something that you already have?
Exactly.
Cool. Given that Poker Flat is probably the more prominent, the one that's more well known, can you tell me a little bit about how that one came to be? I mean, that's just celebrated 20 years not too long ago, which is a very impressive milestone. So I'm just curious how that label got started.
Yeah, well, as I said, we've been running Raw Elements for around 3 years. We had a little issue with our distribution. They would sell us as an experimental label, which at the time wasn't really helpful selling music. And also we've been releasing everything from disco-ish house to like more electro kind of Detroitish techno and everything in between. And I think at the time, at least our feeling was that people couldn't really handle this kind of widespread sound on one label. And so we decided to split these in two. And also I wanted to try a different way of distribution. And I started Dessous at first by myself. just to show my label partner that we can do better with another distributor.
Mhm.
And yeah, basically I was right. And so then we put Raw Elements to sleep and started Poker Flat also. And then I handed over Dessous after 10 releases, because that was getting too much work. Completely running a label by yourself when you're touring DJ, that's basically impossible if you want to do statements for the artist and not keep all the money.
Mhm.
Because it's just too much. It's just too much work, I have to say. Yeah, so this is how we got into Poker Flat and Dessous.
Cool.
And also the main idea at the time when we started Poker Flat was to, at the time, I think we wanted to get the artist phase involved. It was like a different time in the late 80s, early 2000s, where before we never had the artist face on the label sticker or anywhere. And we kind of, but we wanted to give it a twist, so we put the heads of the artists on like old Playboy Playboy magazine style dudes and stuff like this. And so we were basically making visual jokes out of ourselves, instead of taking serious press pictures and stuff like this. And so we were basically doing it to just make a bit of fun of ourselves. I think it's a pretty northern German way of type of humor, to not take yourself too serious. And that's how we were doing it. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me like you guys might have invented the first memes when you're doing stuff like that.
maybe.
I mean, I certainly admire that approach. Just it reminds you that music is fun and enjoyable, and a lot of times, especially in the techno aesthetic with all the black and the darkness, and you're right, there are plenty of artists who opt for those more brooding and serious press photos, which is their right, of course. But I just personally, I think it's cool when labels when any force within techno reminds or just demonstrates that this is fun. Like, we're doing this because it's enjoyable and we love it. It's
Exactly.
not something to make you scowl at.
I mean, yeah, it's basically, this is club music. It's music you want to have fun to, and I understand why some people see it as a serious thing, and also the music is different that they play. But in the end, is we all want to have a certain fun, like when going out into clubs, and I don't want to stand seriously in the corner being like, oh, this sounds cool, I want to be like, yes. And so I think, yeah, it's and in the end, I think we're all gonna once we're in the club, I think we all lose the seriousness and start to lose
definitely
ourselves.
Cool. One thing that has become clear as we've been talking and through listening to your labels catalogs is that as long as you've run these labels, they've always maintained their certain identity, their sonic identity. That's why when you get tracks that sound outside of Poker Flat, you don't change Poker Flat, you start a new label. And what that demonstrates to me is this kind of integrity that comes with running an independent label. And in my experience, just being a fan of music for so long, I've always found that independent labels, regardless of the genre, they've just always had that level of integrity to them, where it's like, if I find a track that I really, really love, see what label it's on, I can basically guarantee that I'm going to like pretty much every single track on the label. That's just how it's been. That's how it's worked out for me. That's how I've found endless amounts of new music. And when you look at the music industry as a whole, and you see these signs of people sacrificing their integrity to get higher fees, to make more money, there's obviously the people who are just straight up shady to one another. Independent labels just always have maintained that integrity. And as someone who has run independent labels for so long and run so many, I'm wondering, why do you think that is? Why do you think independent labels just, they do it, they they maintain that integrity. They just do it. They never waver. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that's back to my point before, is that why these labels are probably still like independent is because someone is behind it who's loving what he's doing, and he or she doesn't give a damn about making money. I mean, we all have to survive,
Mm-hmm.
but probably not making choices based on how I make money, or like it's like music to me, and for I think for a lot of other independent label owners, is about passion and about uh, yeah, about something you personally feel and like, and it's not about what other people like out there, and you're not, and if a trend is shifting, it's maybe not a smart move to shift with the sound financially, but then again, like in the long run, as you say, you keep your integrity, and you have a sound of your own, and you're not like everybody else who's trying to follow the trend. I mean, you can only set a trend once, and then someone else is going to do it. I think it's basically, there's a very few labels. I couldn't think of one right now, probably outside of electronic music, that have been able to set trends more than once or twice by stuff that they were releasing without, following trends. Have been like trendsetters, but then again, integrity is not about setting trends. It might happen in the beginning when you start, but then once you're running a label for a while, basically people already see you as established, and they wouldn't see you as trending. And it's something I personally been struggling with from time to time, as in the electronic music scene, where everything is moving so fast, and there's this the also in the clubs, the crowd is changing every few years, and people getting married, or they just don't feel like going out so much anymore, and so the crowd is changing all the time, and there's always new trends, always new music, and it seems that not so many people care about integrity, or about like having a certain sound that you try to fulfill over a certain amount of years, and some major idea or vision you follow. It seems like not many people can do realize what it's worth, and how much work it is. Also, it's a lot of fun, I have to say. But yeah, again, it's who we are, and I can't do it differently. This is just like I can't. This is how I do it, and I think this is what's for all people who run these sort of labels, no matter if it's dance music or any other sort of music. Independent labels, I think, are basically driven by passion, I think.
Cool. I mean, yeah, that's a question I've had for a long time, and I'm glad I've finally got to ask it to someone with the kind of experience to where they could give an answer. And you know, with from the outside, you if when you're thinking about something for so long, you're thinking about the reason why, you like to believe like it's what you said, that they're doing it because there's no other way. I'm not gonna, they're not gonna sacrifice their original intentions for starting the label. But of course, the other ideas creep into your mind. It's like maybe it's for some other reason. I don't know, but it's just nice to hear that that's your impression, that it's just because of the passion. There's just no other way you could do it. I just really admire that. It's cool.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Um, Another thing about labels, kind of in general, is that overall, because of the pandemic, it's probably one of the only kind of standard entities in music that wasn't like almost destroyed. Gigs, and if like gigs, so the DJs can't play their gigs, the promoters can't promote events and put on events, the agents can't book events, the managers can't do any of that, but the labels could still continue because the artists could still continue to make music, and the labels could still still begin to still put it out. uh and then so I'm just wondering, like, what was how did the pandemic in and of itself affect like the operations of your labels? Were you still like really chugging away at it hard? Did you see like a dip in the work just because a lot of people may have been uninspired, you're not getting as much music? Just how did the pandemic actually affect the label operations?
Um, well, in the beginning, we had a discussion if we just should save everything we had signed at the time for a few months and release it when clubs reopen. But we soon realized that this is going to take quite a rather long time, and that basically in these times, at least we decided for us that it's probably the time where people need music the most, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's not happening in clubs and we're basically a club label. But our sound always also kind of, at least in my opinion, works for home listening. It's not too aggressive. Even though some people like to listen to heavy metal or death metal at home, and I could never see myself listen to this kind of music in a home environment. But that's everyone's to its taste. But yeah, I personally think our music works great also in a home environment, at least from my point of view. And so we decided to keep on releasing music. And also I personally felt super inspired by having all this extra time. um, Also because it's like there's something happened, like after all the years. It's been almost like being not stuck is the wrong word, but being in a hamster wheel. Is it this
Yeah,
English? Yeah,
I know.
like
I don't know the exact word, but I definitely know what you mean by that.
yeah. So like yeah, you've been just running and running and doing everything, and it was great. You've been enjoying it. You've been on like a big pleasure ride. uh but and then suddenly like someone locks the door and it's like, okay, you're not allowed to do this anymore, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening now? And you realize you have all this extra time, and it gives you time to think more about yourself, about your career, about everything. Yeah, it really inspired me to be in the studio and write some music. And I also yeah, I finished an album during this period, in the first period, where you can see that it's rather moody, I think, and it's not so uplifting or like club oriented. It's still like electronic dance music you could play in a club, but it's rather deep and moody, I'd say. Um, and it really shows what my mind state was at the time in the beginning. Like I felt kind of, wow, this is kind of kind of a strange situation. People were dying. We didn't know how this all gonna end, and at the same time, climate change was like kind of putting in the back, but it's still there. And then we had like a family tragedy as well. So like yeah, many things that kind of wanted to be expressed, and so yeah, I put all these feelings into music. Um and so we had a lot of music, and also we've been still celebrating the 20 years for which we got many remixes, and it took quite some time to release this, which actually helped us through the pandemic, releasing more music, or through part of the pandemic, because, as you said before, many artists didn't feel so inspired as I was, and they basically haven't been able to finish any track at all.
Mm.
And it's quite funny that this does different things to all of us. And I think for me, always when I'm kind of put in the corner, or I'm in a bad mood, I feel more like writing music, and instead of when I'm in a super happy state, I feel like, oh, okay, it's like maybe I go tomorrow or something like this. It's I rather express myself when I'm moody, and not when I'm like in a super happy state. It's funny, but maybe for some other people, they don't feel inspired because they miss the inspiration from being touring. It's a great inspiration standing in the club in front of a crowd. I had this many times coming back from a weekend and going on Sunday evening or Monday morning in the studio. It was like all this energy from the weekend, and like starting a new track. This is great. And but I don't need it to write music. That's something I found out, and I probably, it's maybe even better for my creativity if I don't have this all the time. If I have some time to think, and some other stuff. But so it's been difficult to find new music. Before, we had a great ride. We got so many demos from artists I've never expected to send us tracks and stuff, and suddenly this kind of stopped, and I had to actively talk to people, ask for tracks, and but I've been writing a lot of music, so there's been some of my releases. As I said, we had the 20-year celebration going on still, and now, like this year, we're starting with some great new stuff from new artists who haven't signed to the label yet. Like Reset Robot is coming up with his first EP on the label, and Dachshund as well. And then it's Tim Engelhardt with a new EP, and I have something that's coming out in the summer. So like we're set already for half of a year, which is great. And we'll see how the next month's going to be. But I think with more and more clubs reopening for the summer, I think we're going to see more demos coming in, and people feeling more inspired of writing music and stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it could definitely go. I mean, from all the artists I've spoken to, it could definitely go both ways. Like the way that you say the label is an extension of just you as a musician, as an artist. It's not like its own separate thing. That doesn't surprise me, where it's like, there was still a lot of juice for the label, because you had all that creative inspiration on your own. One thing, you mentioned all the kind of cool people you got coming up, Tim Engelhardt, Dachshund. I mean, clearly a cool part of running a label is, giving artists a platform to release their music. And in the history of Poker Flat, there's been artists where you've gotten them like very young and seen them, grow on to do different things, start their own labels. And so I'm wondering, what is that experience like for you to get an artist when they're in their early phases and go and see them grow into, their own force within the scene?
Well, it's great. It's a great feeling. And sometimes my label partner thinks that some people left because I wasn't responding fast enough to their demos, which I don't think is the case. But I was just kidding. I mean, it's great to see artists grow, and I from my own career, I know the need, or the need to, or the feeling that you want to create your own label and surround yourself with music that you personally like, instead of signing to another label, and be able to release everything. I'm having a strong vision for the label, and sometimes if music doesn't fit, I'm saying no. And that through that sometimes you lose artists, of course, but I don't think that's the major part. I think in general it's because people grow, their profiles grow, and they feel like they also want to run their own label. Fair enough. It's great. It's in general, I mean, we started the label. We were growing with very few people, with the Martini Bros, with Martin Lansky. Vincenzo was a part of it in the very beginning from Raw Elements already, and Hakan Litbo at the time, and then we were growing as a family. I've been running poker flat events in Berlin every Friday night, where I've been inviting people like Josh Wink already, Richie Horton, I think Ricardo. I'm not sure. It's like too long ago. I don't know. I didn't keep all the flyers, unfortunately, but we had like many international artists. Swayzek. I have pictures where the guys from Swayzek sitting in my car, and I have a big elk from IKEA in the back seat. I don't know why it was there, but it's like hilarious stuff. Yeah, so it's like, you know, seeing your child grow up. At one point they're gonna leave the house, so it's like it's I think it's a natural thing. Some people stay for like a very long time, but there's always a point of separation, where they might not come back, you know. But mostly I'm keeping in touch with all of these artists, and I still follow their music, and you know, we're still friends, and I have no hard feelings for anyone who wants to evolve or run his own label. Of course, it's always, you know, like, I think when you start a label and everyone is doing, for example, like if we're talking about big labels right now, or like labels that are hyped right now. If you look at Keine Musik, for example, it's a crew of a few people who just released their own music, and they don't really take music from outside. It's a inner circle, you know, like Innervision used to be for a while. And it's a great way to grow together, but it's only going to a certain point, I think. And with Poker Flat we had this in the early years, and then it starts to become something else. You have to open up to other people. There's always personalities going on. It's sometimes it's difficult also to grow together. You know, someone might grow faster than the other, then the other feels like he should be bigger or she should be bigger. So it's kind of a, you know, it's artists, characters. It's like in a family, you know, you're not always best friends with your brothers, but you grow up together in the same house. And so I think, yeah, it's just basically what it is.
Cool. Are there any recent signees to Poker Flat, whether someone who's maybe incoming or someone who's had a few tracks out, that you think is going to be like a big thing in the future, someone who's you can see a lot of potential in?
Well, as I said, we haven't gotten so many demos in the past few months, due to various reasons. I think in the pandemic, also a lot of people saving their tracks. They don't want to release it while the clubs are not open, which is also understandable, because not so many DJs are buying music, and then the clubs, their tracks might never be played in a club, which is kind of also strange. You're writing club music and no one is playing it out. You only hear it in a few podcasts, or, you know, like in a live stream or something like this, or like a few DJs play it somewhere in Mexico or something. It's a limited possibilities for these kind of tracks when you release in these periods. Sorry, now I forgot the question. Oh yeah. So I basically believe in everyone we release, and I love everything that Daxant was releasing, and also Reset Roberts. I'm super happy to have these on board. I'm a big fan, and but they already have a profile. And Tim was one of the last guys we signed before he even had a career. And then after, I don't know, probably even after that, Hannes Bieger signed his first, you interviewed him the other day, or I don't know if it was you, but he was like with the same, with your company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he released his first tracks after his long break, before he was more into, like listening music, you probably know. And so it's great to see these people growing, and but there's no one I could say who's to look out for, who is not known, but
Mm.
I'm chasing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I
Yeah.
mean, just like we were saying before about the whole integrity aspect, whether or not someone is at the point before they blow up in a sense, but no matter what, people who are looking for new music can rely on the Poker Flat name, whether that person's already has a profile or not. And that's what's most important.
Oh, actually, I forgot. Auxilio Joe, who released the first EP in the new design, three releases ago. I know he's working. He moved his studio. He's working on new music. I heard certain bits, and I think he's one to watch out. He's very talented, and he hasn't released so much music yet, but I love what he's doing, and he's very good at what he's doing. He knows how to write music, and he knows how to mix it, and yeah, it's I think this is someone I would definitely suggest to look out. Yeah.
What was your reaction when you first heard his demos?
It's a funny thing, because he's working at the Sign SE and EE Institute,
Mm-hmm.
who released my masterclass, and they have this track feedback every week or every month, I'm not sure. And I've been participating in one, and so he, without me knowing, played a track of his own, and I thought it was some track of the crowd, and I was like, wow, this track is great. When I was listening, I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm like, it's crazy, like how someone puts this track in a track feedback. I'm like, what's going on? And so the track finished, and I started talking, and then he started laughing, and then one of the guys from Sign, and the other guys who was trying to do the moderation of it, he he said he asked him, hey, I'll see you, it's one of your tracks, isn't it? Did you do it again? And he was like, yeah, it's my track, and now I can. And I was like, wow, it's great. And I told him, like, man, if you haven't found a label yet, send it to me. I'd be more than happy to release it. And this is how it happened. And so yeah, this is how it happened.
So that track that you heard in the track feedback session is now a Poker Flat release.
It is Poker Flat released last year. It was a single track release. We basically decided not to do any remixes, to keep the main focus on the original, because I think it's so incredible, and it's slightly, it's very it's a very personal track to him, for him, and it's outstanding. It's not like it, I mean, today to really have something completely outstanding is impossible, but still, it's a very great, unique track, and so I don't want it to be in the shade of a remix by a big name or something like this. I wanted to, even though no one knew, and we knew it's not going to be the biggest seller because it's not a big name, and it's going to be a first release on the label. But I wanted to be the main track and the main focus. That's how much I loved it, and I think it's a good thing for young artists or fresh artists to build your profile, because before you start adding remixes and stuff, because then the focus is always on yourself and not the others.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's just good advice overall for any artist. I mean, maybe if it's like another remixer on your label, as long as it's not somebody who, like you said, would take focus away. but yeah, that's a good way to approach it.
Yeah,
Cool. So
if it's, I mean, if it's just a friend of yours and he thinks of doing it as another version of it, he's like asking, hey, can I do? But if you're thinking of it as like, you know, putting the track and making it even bigger, or like opening up to a bigger audience, yes, it can be helpful, especially when you start a new label, because it's also falling back on the label, you know, like, but sometimes it's like this and sometimes like that. Sometimes you feel like having the remix, but this for me was clear. I didn't want to have everything, anything else standing with it. I didn't even want a B-side. I just wanted this one track. Yeah.
cool. I mean, yeah, after this, I definitely want to take a listen because that's a very strong endorsement.
Yeah.
Um, the one last question is, what's even though things are a bit bleak right now with the pandemic and this new phase, I'm just wondering what's next for you upcoming throughout this year. You know, play
Um,
new music, anything you want to share.
yeah, I mean, as I said, I wrote a lot of new music. I have this month, I have a release on together with Matthias Tanzmann
Oh, nice.
on Hot Since 82's label, Knee Deep in Sound. Next month, I have a track. I have a two-tracker with my mate Clay. We're back on Rejected recordings. There's like a ravey track and an acid track again. Then a month or 2 months after, I have a release on Aus Music. I did a track with vocals by Mr. V again, and Cinti is working on a remix right now, and there's a B-side to it as well by myself. Then I found I was going through my old DATs because the guys from G-Rex asked me to re-release one of my older EPs on Stickman recordings, and so I had to find the original masters. And while doing so, I found two tracks that I completely forgot about that I did with Gemini, aka Spencer Kinsey, in
Mm.
2000,
Oh, wow.
probably in the early years of Berlin, in my Berlin home studio. He was touring, and his agent asked me if we wanted to go to the studio and work on some music together. This is coming out on G-Wax and on vinyl and on as digital, and then another EP with my mate Clay on New Groove Recordings. They talking about sleeping labels. New Groove is back, yeah, and
Yes.
Defected woke it back up, which I love what they've been doing with the label, and I'm happy that we could write some tracks that were suitable enough to be so. It's like basically a dream come true, you know. Like New Groove was like in my early days, like it was one of the labels I've been really looking up to, and I've been really loving what they've released back then, and so it's great to see the label back and being a part of it. And there's more stuff, but I can't talk about it yet.
Cool.
So yeah, I've been super busy, and I'm trying to find slots to release everything at the right time,
Mhm.
which is basically a bit complicated, but yeah, so it's a lot of releases going to come out, and first gigs coming in. It seems like I'm coming back to the States. I did have some gigs in the States right before Christmas. That didn't happen because for the first time, I don't know, I think it's my sixth artist visa for the US, and for the first time there were some issues, and I still don't know what it was, but they just didn't send my passport back in time, and I couldn't reach anyone because there's no phone number. You can't call anyone. You can't send an email. The email is not really replied to. It was super strange. And suddenly my passport was on the way. That's something I could find out through the website, but I got it. I got the new visa, but we had to cancel these. Also, I think New York was already canceling the gig because the show anyways, because of COVID cases rising. But yeah, I'm coming back to the US in March or April. I'm not quite sure. And a few shows. I think also it looks kind of promising that in Europe clubs are opening for at least spring, summer. So I'm I'm hoping that I can play a bit more after these 2 years with almost no gigs it would be great to reconnect with the crowd and play some music to people and be on the dance floor and shake a leg or two.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, certainly let me know if one of those dates is in Los Angeles. I'd love to come stop by.
Yeah, it should be, because one of these shows was in LA that didn't happen, so we have to find a rescheduled date. So definitely LA is going to happen at one point.
Awesome. Cool. And so now we're going to move on to the speed round, which is basically a bunch of yes or no, true, false style questions. Okay. And
as you realized, I'm not pretty good with short answers, so I'm trying my best.
Yeah. In these cases, there's not a lot of a lot of options. There's only short answers are available. It's multiple choice.
It's all good.
All right. So the first one is coffee or tea.
Both.
In
the morning, tea. Afterwards, coffee.
Cool. Biggie or Tupac?
Sorry?
Biggie or Tupac? Do you know the rappers?
Tupac.
Tupac. Okay. Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Ramen or pho?
Ramen. Strong.
Spicy. Pizza or sandwiches?
Pizza.
Club or festival?
Club.
Stand-up comedy or sitcoms?
Wow, this is difficult. Stand-up.
Who's your favorite comedian?
It's German. I have to think of American ones now. Damn.
Let's say that. You could say the German one. Expand people's horizons.
Yeah, but they don't understand it, so it doesn't make sense. What's the name? Sarah. Damn.
Yeah,
whatever.
We can continue on. Yeah. No worries. Where was I? Snow or beach?
Snow.
You just got back from skiing. It makes sense. Lake or ocean?
Depends. I have to say, I like both.
Yeah. For if you could have a superpower, would you choose flight or invisibility?
Invisibility.
I feel like that'd be cool for a DJ. It's like now you literally can't look at me. Look at each other. Analog or digital?
Again, I have to say it depends.
Yeah.
I've
always like that was included on a general list. I don't have to do that one, but I always feel like that's kind of like loaded question for producers, because it's like most of them now use both. So like
exactly.
Very rarely that one is like very prevalent toward the other. House or techno?
House. In traditional saying, Detroit techno, yes, but the modern techno, definitely no.
Drum and bass or trap?
Drum and bass.
Pop or hip hop?
Hip hop.
What's your favorite color?
Oh, since black is not a color and gray either, I'd say yellow.
Eric Prydz or Carl Cox?
Carl Cox.
Flip-flops or shoes?
Shoes.
Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Definitely not.
Finish this sentence. Before I die, I want to
climb 7B.
Is that like in the Himalayas or?
No, 7B. It's a grade. It's a climbing grade.
Oh, okay.
But it's a bouldering. It's a Fontainebleau grade. So I don't know how this would be a V scale in the US. I don't know even like what it is. I'm at the edge of doing a 7A. So I'm on a 7B. It's I've been on a 6C for a long time. It takes rather now I'm hitting the the plateau, it's really hard to get to the next. So 7B would be great.
Cool. And then the last one is, what's your guilty pleasure TV show?
Modern Family.
Cool. Well, all right. What'd you think of the speed round?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But it's really funny because some questions, even though there's a yes or no, or like this or that, sometimes it's just like the lake and the ocean. It's really like you think of depends.
Yeah.
Ocean can be great, but
Mhm.
lake can be great too. So
Ocean also has sharks in it, so that's a bit
depends on where you are. That's true.